Dean King, we will follow your lead. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, and good evening, everybody. We are very happy to have all of you in attendance this evening. We are sometimes thinking that we're doing new things that haven't been done. But as the old saying goes, there's nothing new under the sun. And so as we begin our session this evening to discuss the plaintiffs' efforts to counteract and reverse the decision of the Howard University Board of Trustees to abolish affiliate trustees, that is students, faculty, and alumni, I think it would be good for us to just take a moment and go back to 1923, when 100 years ago, like I said, when 100 years ago, alumni of Howard University were having an impact on Howard University itself. This article is from the Birmingham News of October 14th, 1923. And these are the resolutions adopted at a big convention that was not concerned only with Howard, but because of Howard's significance and its role in already being recognized as the Mecca. You'll see that one of the resolutions passed right after the demand for the enforcement of the 13th, 14th, and 18th Amendments to the Constitution was a resolution condemning the policies of President Durkee of Howard University and asking that the college alumni be granted a voice in the administration of university affairs. They also demanded his removal and that a colored man be made president. And as most of you know, a few years later, Mordecai Wyatt Johnson became the first Black president of Howard University. So this evening, we're stepping in the footsteps of our ancestors. We're upholding the banner of those who felt it important that Howard University be more than a great educational institution, but also a beacon of democracy and opportunity. So on the screen now, you'll see something that I think hopefully we'll be able to put a link in the chat so you can actually read it. But this was a question that we, the plaintiffs, were confronted with early on. Why would alumni and people who knew us, who knew that we loved Howard, who care about Howard, why would we sue the university? And so we tried to just, in an outline form, explain why and what it was that the university did, the board itself, that moved us to take this action. So I want to begin now by welcoming again, I know other people are joining as we're speaking, but I want to again welcome everybody to this evening's meeting and call, and I want to introduce my my co-opening host, Dr. Damon Strawn, who's one of the plaintiffs, and he's going to introduce some of the plaintiffs, and then I'll introduce some more. Danon's originally from Miami, Florida. He now lives in Washington, D.C. He was a chemistry and math major at Howard. He was a student leader, a resident assistant, graduated in 1988. And he's a former staff member in student affairs. As a matter of fact, we worked together in student affairs for several years. So I'd like to introduce Danon. And Danon, if you would introduce a few of the other plaintiffs.
All right, thank you, Dean King. It's always a pleasure to work with you again over the years. One of the plaintiffs is you're very familiar with Dr. Stephen Jackson. His hometown is South Jamaica, Queens, New York. He currently lives in Inwood, New York, and he's also a chemistry major. I think we had a couple of classes together too. And he's a graduate of 1986. He's the founder of the HU chapter of Black United Youth. And he's also done some special projects with HUSA and president of HU chapter of American Chemical Society, retired educator and former principal of DC's Dunbar Outstanding High School, Dr. Stephen Jackson. Another plaintiff, you've heard him before, Dean William King, hometown Harlem in Queens, New York. He now resides in a wonderful place called the Republic of Panama, and wish we were there with you, Dean King. He is majored in psychology and class of 1966, HU retired staff member, student affairs, and also former alumni trustee. Back to you, Dean King.
Okay, thank you. Also, let me introduce another plaintiff, Angela Williams-Trapp, originally from Detroit, Michigan, Motown. Currently lives in Tyrone, Georgia, near Atlanta. She was active in the 1989 protest. She's an electrical engineering major, 1993 graduate, and a former officer, really in many positions in the Howard University Alumni Association. The next plaintiff we'd like to introduce is really, this, you know, I can say this about a lot of the plaintiffs, really needs no introduction. April Silver, from Queens, New York, my old hood, living in Brooklyn now. She was an English major and African-American studies minor at Howard, president of HUSA, and the co-leader of the 1989 protest. She graduated in 1991. Another plaintiff is Willie Lloyd Reeves Esquire, hometown Portsmouth, Virginia, currently resides in Washington, D.C. He was also a participant in 1968 protest, a student leader both in undergrad and in law school. Got his BA in political science and speech communications majors in 71 and his Juris Doctor in 1974. Shwawande Tichwana is a native Washingtonian. I love that. Still in DC, major as broadcast production, and graduated in 1985. And he's a past nominee for alumni trustee. Maria Jones now lives in DC, but she's a Cali girl from Oakland, California. Major was film production in the School of Communication. She's a former member of the Showtime Marching Band, and she graduated in 1988. I want to give a special shout out to one of our plaintiffs who's not able to be with us tonight because she's unfortunately in the hospital. She's recovering. The last word we got was she's doing well. That's Miss Alta Kennedy. She's class of 1991. She lives in Maryland. Alta and I have known each other for decades, really. She served in numerous roles in the Howard University Alumni Association at the local, regional, and national levels. She's a former staff member in development and alumni relations at Howard, and she's currently the CEO of the Avery Croft Group, which does international work. And finally, our last plaintiff, who is the first named plaintiff in the lawsuit, is attorney Timothy Jenkins. Again, really, for those who know, need no introduction. He resides in Washington, D.C. He's from Philly originally. He's class of 1960. He was the student body president at Howard. This is before the days of the actual HUSA. He's a co-founder of SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. He's a former alumni trustee. In fact, he's the alumni trustee who made the motion to create the affiliate trustees, which the board recently abolished. And he's a former counsel to Howard University during the presidency of Dr. James E. Cheek. And so with that, we welcome you again this evening. We thank you for attending. We thank you for your interest and your support for our effort. As we say these days, we're not suing Howard University, we're suing for Howard University, because it's necessary and important that the board be required to adhere to its own bylaws. If not, what will they do next?
Thank you, Dean Keen or Damani. We're going to turn it over to Angela Williams-Trapp, who is going to give a couple of comments, and also who we call Steve, who's coming on board now. Thank you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Let me begin. First and foremost, I want to thank April, Dean Chang, Dr. Strong for their very encouraging words. What I would like to do is, many of you have supported us through the various donation platforms that we have set up, which include CashApp, PayPal, Zelle, and even some of you sent checks who may not have, use these particular platforms. But what we would like to do is express our sincere gratitude for your donations to our legal fund, because your contributions thus far, because of your contributions thus far, we have been able to pay our researchers and attorneys to fight on behalf of all Howard alumni to restore our right to be included on the Board of Trustees. Because of you, it will be possible for alumni to be represented on the Board of Trustees and help make decisions that will determine the future of our beloved Howard. Your generosity is what will give us as alumni the right to represent and support our university. But more importantly, it will help support students, faculty, and alumni. So me personally, I want to thank all of the alumni plaintiffs for being part of this journey for the last year or so, when we've been meeting almost on a weekly basis to help raise funds to support this most important endeavor. And now I want to introduce my other friend and Howard alum, Miss Angela Trapp.
So thank you, Steve. On behalf of all of the plaintiffs, we would again like to welcome you to our town hall. And I would just like to explain the purpose of this meeting, so you all know why you're spending the next 45 minutes or maybe a little longer than that with us. We're going to just do a recap of the legal complaint so you all understand what the legal complaint entails. Our own Timothy Jenkins Esquire is going to give you a short presentation so that you have some meat on understanding the complaint and why our complaint has Timothy Jenkins named as our primary plaintiff. We will review our lawsuit. We'll give you some updates of the current filing that's in court. We will again thank our donors, because we would not be able to do this work, the hard work that Donald Temple and his staff are doing in Washington, D.C. They would not be able to do this work without our donors. So we want to make sure we thank our donors. We will have an appeal for additional donors. So for those of you who want to give, it is definitely not too late. In fact, we will continue to look for more donors. We'll have a question and answer session so that any of you that have questions will be able to answer any questions that you may have about the complaint or about us. Obviously, we will make an appeal for additional plaintiffs tonight. So as you're listening about the complaint, think about whether you'd like to join us as a plaintiff. We could use more plaintiffs on the complaint itself. So we definitely encourage you to think about joining us. A lot of you have reached out to us and said, you know, we love what you guys are doing and we want to support you in any way. Well, this is your opportunity to do that. And then we'll wrap up the meeting with additional calls to action. And of course, we'll adjourn at the very end. And we appreciate you joining us tonight. And with that, April, would you like to introduce the next plaintiffs on the agenda?
Yes, thanks. Just to re-emphasize, you're going to get a lot of information, but there is a section for Q&A, just to emphasize what Angela said. We will be taking questions, and we can make this, interactive. So on that note, let me find my girl. Where you at? Where you at? There's Maria. She's going to have a part in this. And then when we say that y'all about to be inspired by a presentation that Timothy Jenkins is about to do, that's an understatement. So where did my girl go? Where's Marie? Oh, there you are. Hold on one second. There we go. All right, so everybody, these are two additional plaintiffs. Maria Jones has something she's going to share with us, and then she'll turn it over to attorney Timothy Jenkins. So we thank you, and Maria, floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much, April. Good evening, everybody. I'm just going to make it very brief. I am honored to be a plaintiff in this case, and I urge you to be one too. Just the layman's recap. On June 21st, 2022, the Howard University Board of Trustees announced that they were eliminating seats from the board as if they were casually passing some bodily function. Not only was it shockingly disrespectful, it was absolutely and positively illegal. A breach of the bylaws, a breach of trust. The dismantling of alumni, faculty, and student seats, the main constituents of Howard University. Without us, there is no university. Think about that, y'all. Without the students, alumni, and faculty, there is no university. What does that leave and for whom? So a group of us alumni got together, we came together, we wrote letters to the board. We submitted a petition to the board. We knocked on doors, we made phone calls, no response. So that left us no choice but to seek legal recourse. Our lawyer, also an alum of Howard University, the great Donald Temple, he took it on despite the odds. Can you imagine going up against $1 billion institution, our own institution? Why should we have to do this? Why not, trustees, just restore the student, alumni, and trustee seats? But instead, you will engage in an unfair lawsuit. So Mr. Temple filed this lawsuit in December of 2021. And here we are. This is, as April alluded, a David and Goliath situation. One rock is all that David had, and one rock is all that we have. And what is the rock that we have? Each other. That's the rock that we have. And we have to win. We have to win for the legacy of Howard University, for the future of Howard University. We must support the lawsuit with funding. We must have more plaintiffs. And we're going to put some links in the chat for you to read the whole complaint. That is so extremely important. And if you don't have the gumption to read the whole complaint, fine. We'll put the Washington Post article about the lawsuit in the links in the chat as well. Right now, we want to introduce our lead plaintiff in a little bit more detail to you. So I'm going to share my screen so that we could do that. Hold on 1 second.
While Maria is doing that, I just want to tell everybody to buckle up. The video is inspiring, and yeah, we see.
Okay, okay,
We
sorry.
don't see the video just yet, Maria. We see the back door.
Okay,
But
that's okay. Let me see if I
here we
can. Okay, do you see it?
no, we still see your computer hard drive.
Let's explore.
Hold on.
Yeah. Nope. Now we're back to you.
Okay.
Well, we can come back to it and then just turn it over to Timothy Jenkins. If you want to.
Ballot and the Freedom Summer.
Do you see
These
it?
foundational and strategic actions help lay the groundwork for monumental civil rights legislation that reshaped American society into a more civil nation. Timothy Jenkins played a critical role in all of these watershed events. In high school, Mr. Jenkins excelled in academics, athletics, and debate. He attended Howard University, majoring in political science and philosophy. Studying under the great Sterling Brown and Mordecai Wyatt Johnson and Rayford Logan, these extraordinary men helped shape his own developing philosophy. He was elected Howard University Student Body President, inducted into Phi Beta Kappa, graduating magna cum laude. He was elected National Affairs Vice President for the United States National Student Association, which brought together student government associations from across the country. In 1964, he obtained his JD from Yale Law School. While in USMSA, Timothy soon became one of the founders of the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Jenkins believed that voter registration was the best way to strengthen the movement, and it eventually became one of SNCC's most effective tools in the struggle for equality and freedom. In 1961, it was Jenkins who organized SNCC's first Freedom School. Student leaders, academics, and activists gathered to study the profound and deep-rooted effects of systemic racism. Jenkins' Freedom Schools later provided the framework for the Mississippi Freedom Schools that educated and inspired hundreds of children and adults in the Deep South to organize for their civil and human rights. In addition to his groundbreaking work in the civil rights movement, Attorney Timothy Jenkins worked in the Johnson and Carter administration. He has held academic posts at Howard University Law School, David Clark School of Law at UDC, and at Johns Hopkins University. In addition to serving as special counsel to President James Cheath, he also served 2 terms as a Howard University alumni trustee. In 1970, he made the motion to add faculty and student members to the Board of Trustees, recalling a unique fact that Professor Rayford Logan shared with him. Back in the days of old, Howard students and faculty members worked side by side to erect the original campus buildings together. Attorney Jenkins' motion to form a more inclusive and democratic governance board at Howard was adopted unanimously, and as a result, Howard constituents have enjoyed full representation from that day in 1970 until June 2021, when student, alumni, and faculty seats were undemocratically eliminated from the board.
This decision means that we will phase out the role of affiliate trustee held by alumni, students, and faculty.
Today, at 84 years young, Attorney Timothy Jenkins has not taken rest yet, still standing strong. This time he is fighting for democracy at our beloved Howard University.
There was a statement that Mordecai Johnson used to make. It was, "Who shall watch the watchman?" drawn from the Old Testament. And that certainly obtains here today. Who shall watch the Board of Trustees, if not the students, if not the faculty, if not the alumni? So I think what we have to really consider is the way in which we preserve the importance of shared collective participation as a part of the inherent nature of the operation of our university.
As the lead plaintiff in the case to restore alumni, student, and faculty seats to the Board of Trustees, he will win, and when he wins, we all win. Thank you, Attorney Jenkins, for a lifetime of invaluable contributions to academia, the civil rights movement, to America, and to the world.
Okay, thank you so much. That is Attorney Timothy Jenkins. We're going to turn it over now to let you hear from this genius, this brilliant genius in our midst.
You are muted, Attorney Jenkins. He's coming, everybody.
And let me just say, while he's coming,
Is
oh, there he is.
is
There you
it
go.
on now?
Yeah, we
Yes.
got you.
We got you loud and clear.
We got you.
I didn't expect to have a self-promotion as part of this program, but I'm very complimented by having you hear some of the things that I've been able to do with the Covert's appeal. What I think is important for us to understand is that this is a struggle that we have to pursue on a personal level. We're here to make sure that our voices are heard by the administration in all aspects of the university's responsibilities. I'm a lead plaintiff in name only. What I'm really doing is standing in for the hundreds, if not thousands, of people who have benefited from being students at Howard. I was fortunate to be a student body president in the last year of Mordecai Johnson's presidency. And he pressed upon me the obligation that we continue to make our voices known and speak out. He let us know that we had a responsibility that was personal, not just institutional. So when we reach out to get people to be plaintiffs, we reach out to say that you have to voice your own opinion about the future of your university. And it is important for you to invest your resources to make sure that that whole opinion is being heard and felt in the voices, in the places of power. I'm a lawyer, but I do not have confidence in the law as an instrument of social change without people behind it. We as students, as faculty, as alumni, must make known to the world that we intend to be heard and we intend to influence the direction of our university. When we sang the song, Lift Every Voice and Sing, we forget that line that says, lest we forget, O God, where we met thee. We are still in a struggle to fulfill the promise of yesterday. I've been proud to say that what we are doing is fulfilling the promise of yesterday in our work today. And I think that all of you should put your shoulder to the wheel to make sure we pull Howard out of the rut that it seems to be destined to be part of. There is a great temptation on the part of people to leave the hard work to others. This is not the place for that kind of action. We must do the hard work ourselves, because only then will we have something to pass on to our children as was passed on to us. Thank you for listening to me for a few words, and I'll be happy to respond if there are other questions and issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Attorney Jenkins. We are honored to be guided by your wisdom. Can I just share with everybody that Attorney Jenkins shows up at every meeting and is on every email. We really appreciate your guidance and your wisdom. and your encouragement. So folks, again, we want to remind you that there will be time for Q&A. So just, write them down. We're making this an interactive form, even though we're front loading a lot of information. And with that, I would like to change the spotlight and bring on our counsel. Donald Temple is our counsel, and I think a lot of you will remember, at least the folks from my era, he cut his teeth on the 1989 protests, so to speak, right? That was the first student protest where he guided us when we took over the A building in 1989, and I see a lot of fellow Howardites there, but this proud alum activist attorney kept us guided and grounded in 1989 when we took over, when we sought to kick Lee Atwater off the board, amongst other things. And then in 2018, Donald Temple was the counsel for the student protesters there then at that time, and served as, once again, the Blackburn protest takeover, served as counsel. This is all pro bono, folks. This is all his own time, resources, and money. He served as counsel for the students who took over Blackburn in 2021. So it is our pleasure, our honor to lift him up, to hear his hard work that he's doing. We will make an appeal for you all to have him not do this alone. So I could go on and on, but Attorney Temple, I want to turn this over to you so people can be beneficiaries of your research and wisdom and set up for the questions. Thank you, sir. I think, are you on mute, my friend?
Good evening, everybody, and thank you, April. I appreciate the compliments and things like that, as well as Timothy, but I don't consider what I do to be great. I'm honored because I came to Howard in '71, probably a lot less weight than I am now, from a family in the poorest part of Philadelphia. And today I'm here in my law office at this late hour with my colleague, digging into a case that I can't underscore is so important to the future of Howard University. We have two sides to this coin, people. But to really understand the issue at hand, you have to ask this question against this background. The first Howard University alumni elected to the board was elected in 1924. And then again in 1925. And in 1926, a board action created alumni seats on the board more formally. In 1926, because the alumni were active, just like the alumni on this call and other calls, the Congress of the United States in the House considered the question of whether Howard should have alumni on the board. When the board made its decision, because they were active Howard alumni in 1923, just like you, but they were in a different space that I want to underscore. Only a few years before then, Black people were coming out of a period where education was deprived, was non-existent. The opportunity to have basic education, nevertheless secondary education. As I began to dig into this case, and particularly to look back at that time, I saw that Howard University alumni were on the front line of what it meant to educate Black youth and to have an institution that had the capacity to do that. And it was fervor and energy and inspiration and dedication and commitment. Some of the information that I've read, I've shared with the plaintiffs, and I urge you to review. Between 1924 through the 20s, alumni served on the board at Howard University. Through the 30s, through the 40s, through the 50s, through the 60s, through the 70s, through the 80s, through the 90s, and the first decade of this century, without a single effort being made by the board or the United States Congress or anyone else to remove alumni. Because the history of alumni being on the board was purposeful. We, and we haven't done what we can and what we need to do, but alumni of this university were entrusted with the responsibility and obligation to support the mission and obligation of our own university to ensure the education of our communities. And this story hasn't really been told to the masses of alumni in the way that it should. There are learned among us, including our board chairman and Mr. Jenkins, with whom we've had discussions early on about what the Board of Trustees is doing. But the question is, why in 2018, 19, 20, 21, 98 years after alumni have sat on Howard University's board participating in debates, even healthy debates, as they should be. Because as Mr. Jenkins has indicated, who is the watchman? Who is the watchman for a board that resents dissent? A board that resents dissent. It's not inherent in alumni or students or faculty being on the board that there's dissent, but there's a healthy debate, not because they bring a subjective perspective from either lens, but because the university is a richly diverse university. The perspective of a student is different than the perspective of an alum. The perspective of an alum may be different than the perspective of a faculty, and certainly the perspective of affiliate trustees may be different than what we now see on our board, which is an entrenched view of people in an industry in a segment of our community that is different than the masses of our people. And our university is at stake. We can't believe everything that we see, and there's so much, my people, that we don't know. At our university, the minutes are confidential for 25 years. That takes me then to 1998. And what happened at the board between 1998 and 2023 is not disclosed. At the same time, there is a charter, and it's a congressional charter. And pursuant to the charter, we receive federal appropriations. But we don't know the decision-making process. We don't know what's beneath the closed door of information. And the university, and for those on the call who are from the university, they don't agree that we should be challenging the university. They don't agree that we should challenge the fact that the university has removed affiliate trustees. And so I want to just tell you a little update about this case, a little bit about where we are and maybe where we're going. I am, like the plaintiffs, proud to be engaged in this litigation because it's a legacy lawsuit, not unlike the struggle of the alumni in the 1920s and 1940s when the Howard University alumnus wrote a piece in the New York Times about the Howard University Board of Trustees, or like the students when they struggled in the 60s and 70s, because we all love this university. We all love this university and we want to see it do better, and we want to be invested in it doing better. The relationship of alumni to this institution is more than a simple word. All of us experience some aspect of what this university gave us subsequent to what our ancestors experienced between 1619 and 1965, when the 13th Amendment was passed and when the Civil War ended. And in 1867, 1 year before the 14th Amendment was passed into law and citizenship was bestowed upon us. And in 1870, when the 15th Amendment was passed. This history is not fleeting or something that we can dare forget. So as we approach this litigation, what we are mindful of is this fundamental question: why now? Why in 2021 does the board decide that it wants to remove alumni? And as we've confronted this litigation, necessarily under-resourced, not necessarily under-resourced, but necessarily interested in the reasoning and interested in the information, we learn and we're disturbed by the process. We're disturbed that the chairman indicated that there was a study that we've never seen of consultants who recommended that affiliate trustees be removed. We're concerned that the chair of the governance committee corresponded in April 2020 and basically halted elections, and halted those elections between April 20 through June 2021, when the board, after excluding alumni, and this is interesting, folk, I want you to think about this. And don't think about it just from a legal point of view. Think about it from a common sense and moral point of view. Our board of trustees, the word is trustees. Our board of trustees decided that there should not be an election to fill the vacancies of the affiliate student, faculty, and alumni. So when a term would expire, you wouldn't fill it between April 2020 and June 2021. And the reason why they stated in this pleading, in this paper, their motion to dismiss is because of COVID. And it was a pause for 18 months. And after that pause was no longer a justification, they did what they ultimately intended to do, was to make it permanent by voting to remove people. But it was the manner in which they did it. And we would be insulted as Howard University graduates, law schools and otherwise, if we didn't ask the question: if you're going to not allow these affiliate trustees to be elected and you halt the elections, and then there are vacancies on the board to which they were required to fill, because the board says in Article 1, Section 2, that the board consists of faculty, alumni, and students. But the board deliberately, its leadership deliberately did not fill those positions. And then they had a meeting where those positions weren't filled, and they voted to remove those positions. So that's like me having gone to my mama's house, and mom says, look, you can't come in. And then she decides that you no longer have a room and she excludes you. You're not even involved in the process. This is our house. This university does not belong to the Board of Trustees. This university, the board is entrusted to do its work for the benefit of educating our youth, and the stakeholders are all partners in that equation, from the way that the board was set up at this particular time that it removed these stakeholders. Just 5 months later in November, the board, 5 months later, again, excluding those very people that the board bylaws required to be on the board, once again voted, this time, and this is critical, this time to undo what the alumni did in 1923 and in 1924 and in 1925. To undo for a sentiment that is inexplicable because we don't know what their minutes are. We don't know what the consultant report is. The board chairman told us that he would have an hour meeting with alumni, hard stop, 1 hour, to discuss their reasoning. And all of us are well educated in multitudes of experience. PhDs, JDs, MBAs, professors, and the university's respect for us was rooted in a 1 hour meeting. And at the 60th minute, we were told it was a hard stop. So to this day, we don't know what its justification is. But what we were expected to do, notwithstanding the absence of information, was to sit on our hands and to say, okay, it's okay for our great university and our trustees and our leadership to undo what alumni have done and fought for since 1923, while at the same time being engaged where alumni can in supporting the university. It's okay to undo what students did during the 1960s and 70s and 80s and 90s, not merely to protest, but because they love this university, because they're concerned about the future of this university, not the future of the buildings, but the future opportunities that it presents for young people in generations yet born to experience what we experienced, to become the greatest that we can be. And so we've gone through this struggle. And when the university made that decision, we did everything in our power, everything that the university would want us to do from a due process point of view. We wrote the university, student leaders from 40 years, 4 generations of student leaders implored the university, why would you do this without involving us in the process? Why would you do this without sharing information with us in a responsible fashion? Why would you disenfranchise alumni at the same time that we're fighting the disenfranchisement of Black people throughout this country during the 2020 election and thereafter? What message are you sending? And whatever message that they thought they were sending, when we challenged them, we were left with one question still. Why? Why? What is happening at our university that the level of transparency and accountability is being minimized because alumni are in the way of that process? Students are in the way of that process. Faculty are in the way of that process. Yet if you removed alumni, if you removed faculty, and if you removed the students, what kind of university would exist? Well, we are harsh about it. We are passionate about it because the manner in which the university handled this particular situation. And we were left with no choice, literally no choice but to file a lawsuit and to challenge the university. And we did. And we filed this lawsuit in the District of Columbia Superior Court. And needless to say, the resources are thin, but we did the best that we could with what we had. And we learned a lot in that process. And that lawsuit was attacked by Howard, which we expected and still do. No problem. We continue to challenge the university's wrong. The Howard University retained an impressive law firm with great credentials and great lawyers, I should say. And those lawyers filed, they moved the case to federal court. And you can do that when there's a federal issue. And they claimed that the charter was a federal issue and that DC nonprofit laws didn't apply. And we moved to remand the case back. We disagreed. And at that time, we had some pretty strong feelings about things, but little did we know about what really happened. They opposed that remand motion, and we began to learn more information about the university's dealings only through the writings of their counsel and the representations. And they simultaneously filed a motion to dismiss. Well, the judge ruled against us and he ruled that the federal courts did have jurisdiction. And while that ruling was against our view, because of the charter, it was a very constructive and insightful ruling. And we very much appreciated the judge's analysis of this case. And it goes to some of the core issues here. And at issue really is the significance of the 1867 charter, the significance of our bylaws. And you should know that as we speak, we're making adjustments based upon some of the judge's rulings and some of the arguments. And we're preparing filings in the next several days that speak to some of those issues. But I want you to know, and I would urge people to read and to encourage other alumni. I'm an alum. I'm in a fraternity. I'm in a very strong service organization, family at Howard. My daughter went to Howard. My brother went to Howard. My cousin went to Howard. My niece went to Howard. Many friends that went to Howard. Talk it up. Don't let this issue and the things I'm telling you be secondary or tertiary to what's really happening in our lives, because it's important. And let me tell you what is being said. What Howard is saying here is that these bylaws don't give the faculty, the student, or alumni any rights whatsoever regarding how it determines who sits on the board, regarding who it removes from the board and how it removes them from the board, regarding who it allows to vote or the process regarding the vote. It says that they owe no duty whatsoever to alumni. These are formidable legal arguments, actually very interesting legal arguments. And they reference the charter and rely substantially on the charter. But they ignore the history of this university. So we respectfully disagree. And we're studied, and I say we, not like it's an army of a we for sure. We've invested a lot of time studying the case, and we will be filing in response to their motion in opposition to their motion to dismiss. At that time, they'll have the opportunity to file an opposition to a reply to our opposition. And then the Honorable Judge Contreras, who's an extraordinary judge in the United States District Court, will render an opinion. And at that point, we'll know exactly where we stand. We can't tell you when that opinion is going to come down. And I am not able to here at this particular point in time also share with you our legal theories, because I know that I would be talking directly to Howard University's lawyers if I did that. And so I will share with you any kind of other insights. Our lawsuit is against the university's Board of Trustees individually. And we'll make some adjustments there as well. I will say this is that we are, I would think, making appropriate legal and factual adjustments based on extraordinary research that we've done and information that we've learned. But I will also say this, it's almost impossible, I can't say impossible, it's just extremely challenging for alumni to represent our best interests when the minutes of the university are basically not available to us, nor are those minutes, and this is a great problem that transcends this lawsuit, but even when the university provides its annual reports to the United States Congress, those minutes are not provided in those reports, not only for Howard, but for other congressionally chartered universities. The criticism of those reports are not complete and really don't reflect what's going on. So I close by saying this. If the Congress, through those annual reports, is not really eyeballing what's going on at our university, and if the alumni, faculty, and students are not able to raise questions except outside of the board process by way of committees that have no authority, and a board is meeting that's self-appointed by its own members and making decisions that involve now hundreds of billions of dollars and the future of this university in deals about which we have no idea, then the question is who is minding those who are minding the university? Thank you.
Thank you, Donald, very much for that insight. I'm gonna keep your spotlight on, and I'm gonna add myself and ask a question just to kick off, and then we'll turn it over to people. I am certain that the university, and correct me if I'm wrong, would argue or would put forth, but hey, we did make room just in the past academic year. We did make room for alumni and students and faculty to have a seat. This is a recent, if everybody gets their emails from the Office of the President or from the Office of Alumni Affairs, there was a recent email announcement within the past 12 months, I believe, that put forth the university's position that they have brought the faculty, the alumni, and the students back into the fold. So can you address that? And then we can get into other questions from the body.
I can't address it better than someone from the administration could probably address it, because what they would tell you is this, is that it's the question of information and participation and engagement is a relative one. Our Board of Trustees meets, and many may not know that not only does it meet, but the board also goes into what it calls executive session. It's in those executive sessions where whatever is being discussed at very high levels and very confidential levels, actually that decision-making process takes place. The notion of involving alumni on the board is a good one. And we appreciate our alumni who are on the board. The trust factor is a basic trust factor. If the board is self-perpetuating itself by appointing people with whom it's comfortable in alumni circles, whether it's alumni or faculty, but certainly if the board is going to be voting to approve someone, and I have looked at the credentials of our fellow alumni and they're sterling, but if the board is going to corporatize itself and to have people who are from the financial sectors and the insurance sectors and the Wall Street sectors and investment banking sectors and the hedge fund sectors, and not bring on the other sectors of our community, and I'm not saying that that's bad. I'm saying that the board has become very elite and very exclusive and very limited in terms of its diversity. And that's a concern. So to bring on alumni is good. Our president is an alumni, our champion is an alumni. But that doesn't mean, though, because we disagree, then that you keep people off of the board, alumni who don't disagree. We, the alumni, would be interested to look at the votes of the board on critical issues to see whether these votes, how skewed they are, whether they're unanimous votes, like the vote in which the alumni voted its own, which the board voted alumni off the board. It was a unanimous vote. And the question again is why? So to answer your question, it's a deep question. And I take a lot of bullets by saying what I'm saying here because I have friends on the board. But the fact of the matter is that the board is not as objective and impartial and diverse on issues that affect our viewpoint when I appoint you, my friend, to the board because I know you or you're a fellow alum in terms, and I would challenge the board. I would challenge the president of the university to tell the alumni, not me, to show the alumni how those votes are being taken. What have been the votes on major issues? To what level is there dissent? To what level are people challenging the status quo on that board to make sure that there's maximum accountability and maximum transparency? So
Yeah.
I don't think that necessarily addresses the issue that we're raising in terms of us having the opportunity at the three affiliate stakeholder in those categories to have people who are honest. These people have never had problems. Nobody is breaching a fiduciary duty or being on the board. If it is, it's a mosquito on an elephant's ass over a 96-year period. It's a ridiculous proposition, 98-year proposition. And so the question still is why?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The question was posed to me, outside of this, and I want people to either raise their hand, excuse me, or put the question in the chat. My fellow plaintiffs will monitor that, but this is the opportunity where if you have a question or something is not clear, if it's a legal term that you're not clear on, this is the opportunity where you can ask our counsel directly. So as you're preparing your questions in the chat, I will ask one more question, but you can also raise your hand and my fellow plaintiffs will alert me if someone has a question about what we've discussed so far. And welcome to the whole bunch of you who have come and joined us late. Let me just add that this video, this meeting, as you know, is being recorded, and we will put it on YouTube so you can share it with family and friends for those who may have missed it. So again, welcome to those who have come in a little bit later. So I see that Tracy West has raised her hand. I want to give a shout out to Howard Alumni United, an organization that has been supportive of the work and helping to create awareness about this. So we appreciate that work from the organization and also the Capstone group as well. So I wanted to give that shout out. So Tracy, I don't see you in the queue, but I did get a notice that you raised your hand. So you can unmute yourself, Tracy,
Okay.
and feel free. There you go. How are you,
Thank you,
Tracy?
April. I'm well. How are you?
Good, good.
Good. Hello, everyone. And good evening, Donald. I have a quick question, or what I hope would be a quick question. When you were speaking earlier, you were talking about how the case has been moved to the federal court and now the federal court has jurisdiction. You also mentioned that we lost tremendously on the charter. So I was wondering if you could expound upon that. Because,
Yeah.
okay, thank you.
But let me just say that we did not lose. I never said we lost tremendously on the charter. I want to be very clear.
Okay.
As case, the remand motion turned on the charter issue, but we did not lose on the charter. And I will underscore that is that the charter is now an issue in the federal case. And to the extent that it is, and to the extent that we've learned so much more about the connection of the charter to the bylaws and to the history of the university, let me assure you, that battle is not lost merely because the court has federal jurisdiction. Let me also explain. Either court could have jurisdiction. And the reason why we filed in the DC Superior Court, and I can say this safely, is because we believe that the DC, there's such a thing as common law and there's such a thing as statutory law. and I know I'm not talking to lawyers, but there are common law issues that are going to play out in this case, and they're significant, and they're still significant. The fact that there's a charter, I mean, the charter is foundational. Our university was founded in 1867 because the Congress of the United States of America, and you should read the legislative history there, the Congress of the United States and the debates surrounding that, recognize, in particular, in one debate that you can't keep people in that kind of condition that we experience without doing something for them, without raising them up. And education was paramount. It's the same principle of education that Charlie Houston, when he approached this whole issue of segregation in the 50s in the South, that he raised and he challenged. So in creating Howard University, it's a beautiful story about the creation of our university and how it really jumped off in 1866 through 1867, and where it went in 1867 through 1923. The incremental growth of alumni is an unbelievable story. I mean, it's an incredible story. And if you knew it and if you read it, I mean, we would do, including myself, we would do even more, and that we would be involved in this case with a lot of love. I shared with the plaintiffs a story from a publication from 1925 written by, and it's an alumni publication, it's 6 pages. And alumni talking about how important Howard was to them. And you can only imagine what people were making then. And these alumni in 1925, they were saying how important it was if each alumni could give $1,000. And they mentioned how they could raise $6 million and what it would mean. And alumni were active for the budget, which was relatively less than, and those numbers are in the record. You can see that. But these alumni were passionate about building a Howard University, and the Congress of the United States of America in its debates recognized that. And there were debates where they said, well, these alumni have to stand up and they have to do something, and there's all kinds of discussions about it, even though it's really not far from when the war ended and when the constitutional amendments in the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, 1865 through 1870, were passed into law. And we still went through a period of time. Y'all know the story. The soldiers moved out of the South, and the conditions of our people who were in labor and uneducated, and in the prison system, this story. But these people who went to Howard, and you can see their faces and their pride, and they read their writings, and you can see what they were doing. These people said in 1925 that the then white president of the university had to go. They wanted a Black president. So the alumni voices have been consistent. The point to your point in terms of the charter is the charter. It's a rich document, and we'll see where it goes. And we plan to address that issue in our writings.
Okay, Donald, thank you. We have another question from Cheryl Green, who we love. Cheryl asked the question, when the university filed a motion to dismiss, did they say on what basis and why?
Sure, they had a lot of reasons. I've given you guys a list of them. They said that one of the things that they said, and you got to understand what they did, Cheryl, to your question, is that the university strategically stopped an election. So they stopped the affiliate trustees from electing 2 people to the board. And then they wrote in their motion this. They said that, I don't know why these alumni are arguing. They said these people are, what's that word, hypothetical. That they don't exist. They're not on the board, so you can't argue about their rights, even though we stopped them from getting elected to the board. So they're hypothetical. And I thought about that. So they said they were basically saying these alumni candidates can't do anything until they sit on the board, but we're going to keep them off the board because of COVID. And now when we tell them that you kept them off the board for 18 months, and they say, well, look, you can't argue about that because they're hypothetical. And hypothetical to me was a problem because hypothetical to me meant, what's hypothetical? Something you can't see. If you can't see it, it's what? It's invisible. And I, unfortunately, because I was educated at Howard University, and when I saw that and the invisibility connected for me, I was only in state of mind. And I was reminded by God of the preface in the book, I'm not invisible. And for Howard to be telling our alumni that based on the facts here, Cheryl, that we're invisible was appalling to me. For Howard to be saying to the alumni, given the history, the faculty and student, that you had no rights under their bylaws, which the Board of Trustees was to respect, I heard that again. And now I'm going from Ralph Ellison, and I don't want to sound like it's episodic or anything, but I'm going from Ralph Ellison because at my law school prep institution, the first case my kids get every year for the last 42 years has been Dred Scott, and that resounds with me. And so we're fighting and we're seeing these things and people are saying these things, but the argument was really pretty basic, that we don't have any rights. You guys don't have any rights. The charter gives us exclusive authority to do what we need to do across the board in a number of different categories. The fact that we made these decisions regarding Article 1, Section 2, the fact that we had a temporary suspension, they say, of the election process is our rights, and you guys can't do anything about it. Next. That's the story.
And to that ludicrous, obnoxious insult, I know most people from 1989 will remember one of the things that triggered us tremendously and gave us a lot of fuel when we took over the A building in 1989. And some of us on this Zoom was with me when we met with President Cheek. And he, before we went into Crampton, right? This is before the protests, before we went into Crampton, and we pleaded with President Cheek and whoever else was there from the board to listen to our concerns and our positions regarding Lee Atwater and the other list of demands that we had. And to our face, he called us transients. He politely said, and Donald, I think this was way before we even brought you on as counsel. He dismissed our stance because he essentially said, children, you have no standing here. You're transients. Go back to your Douglas Hall 116 and go read a book because you'll be gone in 4 years and none of this is going to matter. And nice to see you, but scat cat, basically. And he called us transients. So there's a through line of this diminishing of the power of students, of faculty. I know we have some faculty, maybe we can have some faculty folks give their perspective, but I know folks from 89 will remember that because it's a consistent narrative.
Well, April, but the problem though is that, and we talked about it throughout the different protests leading up to the lawsuit and like, the problem is this: why do you think that I want to be here in my office at, I don't even know what time it is, and be working all week on a lawsuit against a university that I cherish, or you guys want to be fighting? Do you think that the faculty wants to be protesting and the kids got to go to class where the faculty are on strikes and they're not getting paid and there's tensions and the faculty senate is fighting the Board of Trustees? You think the students want to protest against the university like Howard that's supposed to embody everything that Black people have done? None of us want to do that. Mm-hmm. The problem though is that the leadership can build and do things and raise a lot of money, and it's almost like having a big house with all the furniture and everything in the house, and you have a problem with your own children, with your own siblings, with your partners. Our position is that we don't want to fight our own university, and it feels like we're the enemy. And then when we challenge the university, there is the threats of retaliation that we saw with the student protests, the threats of retaliation that we hear from the faculty, and this is not acceptable. So I only say that to say this, is that this litigation is more than just a lawsuit challenging the the board's actions. This litigation is about the values and principles of Howard University, who we are as a university, what it means to be Howard University in the context of the 1867 charter, the articles and bylaws, and everything that we stand for in terms of our legacy and our history. I just wanted to say that to also say this is that, we're doing a bunch of work and it's okay. And, that's not the issue, but your courage is really the issue, April. The plaintiff's courage, the students that stand up, the faculty that stand up. The hardest thing to do here is to say, I'm going to put my name on a piece of paper and I'm going to suffer the consequence of my name being on the paper. There are a lot of people that are pissed because I'm involved in the lawsuit. I have friends on the board. I conversed with the chairman before we filed the lawsuit. I have friends that I've done community service work and activism and stuff with on the board, and they're pissed. And the board is pissed, which is disgusting to me that the board is pissed. Because the board is pissed because of your courage, because you're challenging the board. And you can see it in the tone of their writings, and the way that they write and the things that they say and the way that they say them. But it's okay though. It's okay.
I wanna get two questions in from Sharon Bryant, another brilliant woman who I'm sweating all the time. She asks, what happens if the school wins the motion to dismiss? What happens if the university wins? And she also asks, what happens if the plaintiffs win the motion to dismiss?
That's an excellent question from Sharon, and Sharon has been a total asset in this process. First of all, if the school wins, they win. And it depends on the basis for their win. I would tell you there are some very complex structural issues in this litigation. And this case is a case in many respects of first impression. Let me explain. Howard University is a congressionally chartered institution, but so is Georgetown. So are a few other schools in this city. And the congressional charter is not a simplistic thing. The court's rulings are going to be interesting on some of the issues that are raised in this litigation. But because we lose doesn't mean that it stops because this judge may disagree with us. I can't speak to that prematurely. And I can't speak to whether or not we'll have the resources that we lose to continue or the reasons to continue fighting. This judge is, as I said, is very astute, and these issues are very novel, and the judge recognizes that. If we win, on the other hand, and this litigation goes forward, then it's going to mean for the very first time in a long time that Howard alumni have the opportunity to litigate a case and to get discovery and to find out whether the representations of the university, which have been made relative to the decisions that the university has been made, are truthful, honest, and accurate, and whether or not their reasons for what they said is true, and then ultimately subject to whatever the court decides about the litigation and the scheduling of the case. The court will make rulings on preliminary motions, likely summary judgment motions if it goes that far. Or the university could sit down and say, listen, let's make peace. Let's figure out how to hear you for a change, to hear its stakeholders, to hear its students, hear its faculty, hear its alumni for a change, and to make peace. It's one thing to talk about these things. It's another thing. Black universities do not need what we're experiencing, nor does Howard need what we're experiencing in this political climate. So hopefully the university can have a better mind about the risks that are attendant, not just for us, but for itself. Because if this litigation goes and we win, it's not going to be a small thing for the university. I can assure you that.
Thank you. We're going to turn it over to another plaintiff, Willie Lloyd Reeves, in just a moment. But I want to ask a final question because I don't see any more in the chat. Donald, what, can you put this in a larger context for us beyond Howard University? What is happening on other campuses around this notion of shared governance? Is there anything that will be helpful for us in our understanding and the contextualization of this beyond 2400 6th Street?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, there are a couple contexts, a black and white context. What we're doing is not a black issue. There are other universities that are experiencing the same resistance from alumni and students and faculty. And amazingly, Howard's footprint is a big footprint. We see in a Yale University lawsuit where alumni have challenged the same issue there, and the court denied the university's motion to dismiss. We see even locally, we've seen it in some of the schools in DC where people raise that question. This is a big debate in the education space about the role of alumni in the governance space and about the role of faculty and students. So I think that that's one thing. But the other thing is this, in a selfish perspective, and I don't mind being selfish when it comes to our interests as a race and our community and our future. I think we need to be more focused on what's happening in the education space from age of my grandson at 13 months to as old as the adults on the charter school board that I sit for adult education here in DC. And even in my teaching, my own personal teaching. I mean, education, as Charlie Houston pointed out, is paramount, particularly as we move out of the industrial space into the tech information age and the challenges that we have to make in terms of the adjustments that are coming with extraordinary disruption. And so as we think through this, the need to be more collaborative, need to be more collective is critical. This division stuff isn't good for our school. It's not good for our community. Our alumni, our students, and our faculty had to take more of an interest in what's happening. The stakes are extraordinarily high. We see what's happening now throughout the world in terms of, global warming. We see what's happening in terms of international security threats. What's happening with China and Ukraine and Russia. We see what's happening with Africa and all the varied issues in the diaspora. I mean, and I go back to where I started, April. I don't mean to be so long, but I go back to 1923. I could only imagine what alumni were thinking in 1923 when they imagine when their grandparents were in slavery, when their mothers experienced slavery, maybe, as children, and what they thought and what they understood. And Timothy Jenkins spoke about it well, and quoting James Weldon Johnson, particularly the third verse of that anthem. He said, God of our weary years, But James Weldon Johnson said, drunk with the wine of the world, we forget thee. And it doesn't matter. Some of us are going to be drunk with the wine of the world. Some of us are going to be enamored with our status, our degrees, our cars. I mean, I have all of that. My office is here downtown. I'm out there trying to survive. But the fundamental issue is that we got to realize what time it is. And I still say the question then, even for ourselves, becomes why? What is our why? What's making us tick? And Howard has always been on the forefront. I love the institution. I'm madly in love with you guys. I'm madly in love with our students. I'm madly in love even with the leadership of the university. It just comes a time when, you just have to speak the truth and try to get to the bottom line. This is what we need to do. And so I ask people to watch the litigation, support the plaintiffs. Everybody's not going to join the lawsuit today, but it's a progressive thing, and we can't just keep changing and adding plaintiffs and stuff like that. But we're going to continue to struggle. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to ask any of our fellow plaintiffs to put that link in the chat. There's a web page that has a Washington Post article. The web page has the link to the original, the revised legal complaint. That one web page also has how you can donate, how you can become a plaintiff. Everything is housed in that one web page. There are also some video from people who are not plaintiffs to say why they support it. So while we get set up for Willie Lloyd Reeves to make an appeal for additional plaintiffs, if I don't get to it first, I'll ask one of the plaintiffs to put that other information in the chat. There we go. Thank you. Can I just say for the record, like this is the money that you donate that we need very seriously. Is we as a body, the law office of Donald Temple is doing the work, thousands of research hours since way before December 2021 when this is filed. We need to make sure that he and his staff and all of the lawyers who are working on this can be reasonably compensated for their labor so the lights can stay on in office. So the cell phones work. So that's where your money is going. It's not going to any individual plaintiff. We all volunteer our time. So please, some of you last year made a commitment to make monthly donations. We welcome that. Some people have donated as little as, the range of donations have been from like $10 to $5,000 from alumni, faculty, and people who have nothing to do with Howard, except the fact that they love Black people. So literally from $10 to a singular donation of $5,000 from people because they want to see this Black institution win on principle. So we would ask if you made a pledge to give monthly, if it's $10 or $15, it's welcome because it's needed. The law office is working at an aggressive pace so that we can win. So we welcome that. If all you have is $10 or $500 or whatever, if you want to give more than once, that's welcome as well. There's a GoFundMe page where you can make the donation. There is CashApp, there's PayPal, there's a postal email address where you can send a check if you prefer that. It all goes straight to legal counsel. So we welcome that. It's in the chat. Definitely tell your friends as well. So please know that your financial support is as important as your moral support, and we need you all to be informed. So on that note, I'm going to come off the spotlight. I'm going to take our counselor off the spotlight, and I'm going to, where are you, Mr. Willie Lloyd Reeves? Bringing you on, and we're going off. And yes, there we go. Okay, so the floor is yours, Willie Lloyd.
Good evening. It is indeed an honor to join my fellow plaintiffs in presenting this roundtable informational presentation this evening. I want to, first of all, let you know that there were three major purposes for this roundtable. The first is one we have just completed, and that was to give our Howard alumni community an update on the lawsuit and the progress and the status of that lawsuit. And I think that was adequately done by our prolific legal counsel, Donald Temple. And we want to thank him for all he has done, he is doing, and he will do in moving this lawsuit forward. As we indicated, one was the update. The other is, as April has just mentioned, Donald and his law office they've been doing a fantastic job and pretty much pro bono. And we need to try to support them financially. And we ask that you would go on the webpage if you have not, and if you're so inclined, to please make a donation to our legal counsel so that for particularly his legal research and writing that will be needed in order to respond to the lawsuit and to the motion to dismiss. And thirdly, which is my charge, is to try to let you know that we have plaintiffs we as plaintiffs are working very closely in supporting our legal counsel and trying to move forward. We are now have decided that we would certainly like to ask those who might be interested in joining us to please do that. We have already some prospective additional plaintiffs, and we are encouraging any of you that might be interested to join us. There's some things that you need to know as far as becoming a plaintiff. We have listed a shared screen giving those 7 major points that we need you to consider if you decide to join us as a plaintiff. I know that most of you can read it and see it, but there's some that are on the call or on this Zoom by telephone. And so we want to, because they cannot see it, we want to let them know give them some idea as to the requirements. So in order to be becoming a plaintiff with the Howard alum legal complaint against the Board of Trustees, you must first be an alum of the Howard University, where you have attended for at least 1 academic year. That is all you require. That's required, that you attended Howard at least 1 academic year. Provide proof of attendance, and for the existing body of plaintiffs to review. This is not asked by the courts, but it's asked by us so that we will know who's joining us and who's working with us. The second is that you are not required to have graduated from Howard University, but as long as you were a student at Howard for 1 year or more, you can join us as a plaintiff. We would like you would be required to give your full legal name and postal mailing address, which would become a matter of public record on the legal complaint. And that is required by the courts to make sure that the plaintiffs meet the standing requirements. Next, you must be familiar and in agreement with the legal complaint. Please read the complaint, and if you choose to be a plaintiff, make sure that you are in agreement with that complaint. You also must, we ask that you watch the videos that will give you some insight on the complaint so that you will know what you are agreeing to. And that complaint can be found at the link that we have on this page. For those of you who cannot see the page, if you would go to our website, you will see that link there. Next, you must be able and willing to commit time, skills, and/or helpful resources toward the development of the plaintiff's agenda. This may involve the following activities: attending plaintiff meetings, helping to organize and promote occasional town hall meetings such as the one this evening, executing administrative tasks, reviewing documents from the attorney, and helping to promote the Legal Defense Fund. All of those have been discussed. Next, you will not be required to donate to the HU or Howard University Plaintiffs Legal Defense Fund. If you choose so, we would certainly greatly appreciate it, but there is no requirement to be as a plaintiff to make a donation. Secondly, or next, you would not be required to speak to the media about this lawsuit. We will have spokespersons that will represent the plaintiffs. If you choose to, then you may be invited to do that, but you are not and will not be required to do that. Secondly, if you have any questions or general inquiries, we ask that you would direct them to the alumni plaintiff chairperson, and that is Dr. Stephen Jackson. And his email address is sekou, SEKOU 2021 @gmail.com. Once again, that's SEKOU 2021 @gmail.com. And finally, we ask that you would affirm your desire for participation as a plaintiff by filling out the plaintiff form. That form is located on the on the sheet here, and you can get that from the plaintiff's website. So please make sure you fill that form, and that form will be submitted to us, and it will not constitute your approval as a plaintiff, but it would give us more information as to vetting and reviewing your application. We look forward to those who might be so inclined to join us as a plaintiff, and we hope that you will consider it. Remember, the struggle continues, and if not you, who? And if not when? If not now, then when? Thank you, and please consider joining us.
What the fuck is this shit?
You're on mute, April.
April, you're on mute.
Yo, I be at Zoom meetings and I'm like, you're on mute, and now it's me, right? So my apologies. I'm over here talking away. I was just giving all of the love and warm fuzzies and heartfelt thanks to my fellow plaintiffs, and just hope that people, we welcome more. There have been victorious lawsuits with 1 or 2 plaintiffs. We have more than that, but we welcome more. So thank you, Willie Lloyd, for encouraging us to get that document together. And we hope it's useful. So we're about to close out, folks. I want to bring on who in my day, we knew him as Dean Keene, but he is Damani Keene. Oh, where's your other half? Your, I dare say your better half. Ife is here, his lovely wife, who's also a Howard alum, who we love as well. So Damani or Dean Keene, if you could close us out, that would be awesome. I think your words would be most important. And I just want to remind those who came in late, this video will be on YouTube soon enough. We have your email addresses. Thank you. We promise to keep you posted. So take this information and spread it far and wide. And on that note, I want to give the final words to Damani.
Thank you very much, April, and thanks to all of our fellow plaintiffs. Obviously, our esteemed attorney, who's just doing an amazing job with limited resources. I want to just take just a couple minutes to say I have to comment on the board's actions. I just can't let the occasion pass, because the board gave us several bogus reasons for their action and justifications. I'm going to highlight one. They told us that they acted based on a consultant's report. This was early on when they were still even responding to inquiries from some of us. When pressed, they admitted in writing that in fact the consultants had not even asked the 40, not 400, not 4,000, not 40,000 alumni, the 40 stakeholders, including faculty and students, that the consultants supposedly talked with, that the consultants had not even asked any of them a question about the governance structure of the university. And yet somehow they extrapolated from that they needed to make this change. It's obviously an excuse, a false rationale, bogus. So I had to touch on that point. The other point I wanted to say is that, as Donald Temple explained, the board used as an excuse that because of COVID, they were suspending the elections. You would think that the voters, the students, the faculty, and alumni were all lining up somewhere in a crowded room spreading germs. But in fact, the elections are held online. And during that time, the board was meeting online. But nonetheless, we're supposed to believe that COVID was the reason for that. So as a plaintiff, I want to, as April has already done, I want to thank again Howard Alumni United as a group of very concerned and dedicated alumni, and the Capstone Group, which is a group of alumni, faculty, community people, and students for their continued support of our effort, because we're not fighting this fight just for ourselves. I think everybody realizes that. This is, and I hate to use the expression because it's been used elsewhere in politics, but we're fighting for the soul of Howard University. That's really what's at stake here. Are we going to have a corporate dominated board accountable to no one but themselves, and they don't even have to follow their own bylaws, their own rules, their own chart? They can just do what they want to do? Is that what we're going to have for the future? And if we are, what are they going to do next? What's the board going to do next? So I want to ask each and every one of you to bring a friend, to reach out to your personal network, your Howard classmates, your old faculty members that you're still in contact with. If you're a student, your fellow students, and tell them that this is a struggle that deserves their attention, that deserves their support, and that this is an action that is taken based on the love, the respect, the admiration that we all have for Alumni. Because there's only one Howard University. We know it. Can everybody unmute for 1 second? Because I want to say something. Y'all need to respond. So can we all unmute? Because I'm going to say, it's you.
You know. You know.
Oh,
That's what I'm talking about. And I apologize for my broadband. My bandwidth is not so hot tonight. It's jumping around like old movies over here.
No,
Thank you.
we heard you loud and clear. We heard you loud and clear. We just want to again thank everyone. I want to, if I may, let you all know that there are faculty here who is a support of this shared governance movement that we're doing. So please know that we will be sharing updates with you about their struggle for dignity at Howard University. So we want to give a shout out to the faculty. I think my fellow plaintiffs will not begrudge me for saying that much. We want to shout out to Howard Alumni United and the Capstone Group and everyone. We want to say out loud mad love to our other plaintiff who couldn't be here. Damani said this earlier, but Alta Kennedy, who couldn't be here. So just thank you to everyone. Oh, there's Marcus Alford. So we want to shout you out for your tireless work. We will be sharing updates. So pay attention to your email, check your spam. And finally, thank you to Donald Temple as well. And just to the spirit of activism, that is born in us and that we're seeking to maintain. So on that note, I'm going to ask the plaintiffs to stay on. We're going to say good night to everyone else who joined us. Just pay attention to your email. We'll send out all of the links. You will get all of the links. So if you can't scroll back up in the chat, don't worry about it. We will be reminding you. Thank you for joining us. So we say good night. But I'll ask the plaintiffs to stay on so everyone can sign off. Thank you so much. And thanks to everyone for attending. Yes, thank you. Raina's there. Capstone is in the house. Good night. Thank you. We Howard Alumni United. is in the house. I saw Athena, I saw Tracy, David Dupree, Sharon Bryant. Good night, everyone. So plaintiffs, please stay on. We might actually have to do a different link because people are now still coming on board. So yeah, so we might just have to do a different link, but let's just see. Erica, we love you. Erica England is here. My girl Akanke is here. I think she's gone. Oh, there she is. She's there. So all of the 10 plaintiffs. Oh yeah, I got you, Angie. Thank you for that. I will do just that.
I'm trying to leave, it won't let me. There it goes.
We love you, David.